Hey guys, I'm Kate Max. You might know me from my popular online series, The Running Interview Show, where I run with celebrities, athletes, entrepreneurs, and more. After those runs, the conversations keep going. That's what my podcast, Post Run High, is all about. It's a chance to sit down with my guests and dive even deeper into their stories, their journeys, and the thoughts that arise once we've hit the pavement together. Listen to Post Run High on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Marie.
And I'm Sydney. And we're Mess.
Well, not a mess, but on our podcast called Mess, we celebrate all things messy.
But the gag is, not everything is a mess. Sometimes it's just living.
Yeah, things like J-Lo on her third divorce.
Living. Girls' trip to Miami. Mess.
Breaking up with your girlfriend while on Instagram Live.
Living.
It's kind of mess.
Yeah. Well, you get it.
Got it?
Live, love, mess. Listen to Mess with Sydney Washington and Marie Faustin on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Gianna Prudenti.
And I'm Jamae Jackson Gadsden. We're the hosts of Let's Talk Offline from LinkedIn News and iHeart Podcasts.
If you're early in your career, you probably have a lot of money questions.
So we're talking to finance expert Vivian Tu, aka Your Rich BFF, to break it down.
Looking at the numbers is one of the most honest reflections of what your financial picture actually is. The numbers won't lie to you.
Listen to this week's episode of Let's Talk Offline on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I found out I was related to the guy that I was dating.
I don't feel emotions correctly. I collect my roommate's toenails and fingernails.
Those were some callers from my call-in podcast, Therapy Gecko. It's a show where I take phone calls from anonymous strangers as a fake gecko therapist and try to learn a little bit about their lives. I know that's a weird concept, but I promise it's very interesting. Check it out for yourself by searching for Therapy Gecko on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, I'm Madison Packer, a pro hockey veteran going on my 10th season in New York.
And I'm Anya Packer, a former pro hockey player and now a full Madison Packer stan.
Anya and I met through hockey, and now we're married and moms to two awesome toddlers, ages 2 and 4.
And we're excited about our new podcast, Moms Who Puck, which talks about everything from pro hockey to professional women's athletes to raising children and all the messiness in between.
So listen to Moms Who Puck on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Still the Place with Laura Layton,
Courtney Thorne-Smith,
and Daphne Zuniga, an iHeartRadio podcast.
Okay. Hi, guys. You guys. I feel like today I feel like it's somebody's birthday. Like, I couldn't wait for this day.
It does feel
We've
like
been
that.
talking about it, and here we are.
Yes.
Ready? I feel like I should wish Daphne happy birthday.
Daphne, happy birthday, Melrose. Happy first day. It's happy birthday to the apartment building of hell.
It's not actually your birthday. No. We're actually just recapping the episode where you finally arrived, but just the anticipation. We've been talking about it, and
it's so funny because I was excited about it, but watching the episode when you came on, I took a picture and sent it to you girls because I was like, "Oh my God, she's here!"
Yeah,
it's authentically exciting.
I had an audible too, like, oh! and like, you're so gorgeous, and it was so fun to see you just finally step onto the screen. I will say, and we're gonna get into this episode, I felt so left out in this episode. I was like, oh, both of my friends and co-hosts are there having so much fun having these scenes together. Oh,
we had so many scenes together.
I know, it really was our
storyline.
Both were talking
about
about
how shocked we were. Like, we bonded like this.
I know. But didn't you feel like something was missing? And now we know it was you.
It was me.
Now we know it was Laura.
It's me.
You like how I wore all black in honor of Joe?
How did you feel though when it was this great shot of you walking down the street? Did you scream? We both screamed.
It felt like it's kind of like what you described because it was so long ago that I sort of remember it, but now I go, wow, she was so young.
Yeah.
You know, and also like, wow, sleeveless. She was sleeveless this whole episode. I'm like, when you're young and have really good arms. I mean, I'm like, you wouldn't catch me dead now. But I felt for her, like you described, Courtney, looking at yourself at that young, because now I can look back and I know the adventure ahead of her. Also, to tell you more transparency here, I was yesterday afternoon, went into my garage into some boxes because I wanted to see if I could find photos from the set or photos that would help. And instead I got lost in all these journals and books. This was 1992. So I found them from 1991. And then I found some more in another box and it was from I'm like, what year is this? And it was like 1997, but it was very similar to the 1991. Like those years where I was in love, I think, with somebody else. Well, I know it was somebody else because I was never with someone from 91 to 97. That would be 6 years. But I realized what I was going through as a young woman coming onto the show. So I looked at now the show, I watched the episode and I'm like, God, there's a lot going on with her as a real behind the scenes.
Wow. You mean her Daphne?
Her Daphne for me. And to get to play a character and to come every day. I made the specific choice to do this TV show because I had a place to go every day and to bring my creativity, but really just to bring me. And you guys were this family and we'll, get into it. But that's what I discovered more than I had remembered yesterday, looking through all that stuff.
And finding those journals and stuff. It's such I mean, you forget, we live our lives and we think, I'll never forget this, or I'll never forget this feeling, or this is me. But like we go through so many changes and so many evolutions. And that was,
and the
32 years
and
ago.
The experience, the event of being on the show was so much more layered than just watching these shows. Now that I saw some of this writing and it triggers memories and I go, there was so much more going on than just watching a show. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, which fills it out. It fills it all out. But all I can say is there was so much going on in my personal life. It was really nice to just come and play Joe, which was no walk in the park. I mean, Joe had a lot going on too, but
that's so true though. And I love that you bring in that point, which is as we're watching it, we're not only watching the character in that part of my career, it's our lives at that time. I mean, for me, obviously, because I was dating Andrew. So I'm also like, it's all happening. It's all my whole life was Melrose Place time.
Yeah.
But I love what you're saying about you came in, you had this life going, how what a relief it was to be here on that set. And I was watching you come in and thinking, what a great element you brought in, because we didn't have that sort of tough, you were literally dressed in black, but that tougher, darker element. And they got better at like you came in a fully formed character. And I think the writers, everyone had gotten better over the first several episodes. So you came in, I knew who you were right away as the character. And this first episode, we got so much information about you. And I was like, wow, they did such a great job of introducing you. And they saw in the, like, what was missing. Oh, we need like an edgy New York character. And you came, I was like, oh, that's the perfect character. Didn't you think that? Like, oh, that's exactly what the show needs.
And a sophistication that was sort of intimidating but such a nice, fresh feeling.
Well, it was interesting because you guys, I shot a day or maybe a scene. And when we were discussing Joe, Aaron and Darren, and Denise Wingate was in there. She came into Aaron's office.
The costumer.
Who was just starting. Brand new. We both started the same time. You know how she says she's from the Upper East Side. So they had this other idea that she would come into this apartment. Initially, they thought we're going to put her like in more, kind of Upper East Side-y society. I don't know if it's Chanel or sophistication kind of thing, to show what she came from. And she found the silk dress or the silk blouse and maybe even pearls or something. And no, it was like nixed right away. And Aaron hated it. I don't think it was right for Darren maybe. And we had to reshoot it. And I come in jeans and black, boots and this, and that's that. She's already moving more onto her avant-garde, more like downtown vibe in New York. So I just remembered that, I was a little confused, to tell you the truth. I was a little confused because they wanted her tough, but she also was saying to you specifically, I was very repressed and held in by this marriage on the Upper East Side, which is very, can be very stifling. And So I was a little confused how to play it, to be honest.
Well, I think you played it beautifully.
Yeah. And I think they struck such the right balance because I didn't not see that part of you, the Upper East Side person. I did see that part, but it wasn't in such a way that, like, if you had been in the silk gown and pearls, you would have seemed a little bit more fish out of water in the context of this Melrose Place apartment. Like, why is a woman who has this and dresses this way moving into this like sort of lowbrow apartment, sort of? I think the tone that they did strike was perfect because I still got this sophisticate, and you were a little bit like having to, rethink who you are and where you are in this new environment. And you were a little bit out of place, but chic still. And you could see all that backstory in the way you were dressed and that you fit in better. It wasn't so uncomfortable to have you in that context.
That's a great point.
Yeah. I love that in the first scene, that big belt buckle. That's like such a sign of the 90s, I don't have any in my closet. I looked, but I'm like, I don't even wear belts anymore, but it was this big, and I was like, yes, that's Denise.
Well, you looked amazing. I think we should get started.
Okay, let's go.
This is episode 15. The title of this episode is House of God, otherwise known as the one where Joe arrives.
Yay!
That's the full title. This one's again directed by Nancy Malone. And we open on Allison and Billy. They're jogging down a beautiful, looks like a Beverly Hills sidewalk, actually. And Allison stops. She's panting, says she can't go on anymore. Everything hurts. Billy says, keep going. And this keeps you from thinking about Keith. He wants her to get over it, he says. And he quotes an article entitled 12 Steps to Beating the Blues. And Allison is really tired of hearing about it.
And I love this line of Allison's, I don't know which is more exhausting, jogging or listening to you.
Which I love that. I love that. So they run out of frame, and then we cut to a beautiful brunette dressed all in black. She's walking down a city street holding a newspaper, and she stops, checks the paper to confirm, yep, she has arrived at the intersection.
This beautiful, like, pull out shot of you. The camera pulls
up.
out.
And did you notice what the street sign
at
said?
the intersection of Melrose Avenue and Melrose Place.
And we know where that is.
Yep. And that's
Melrose
where she's arrived.
Place, the street is like,
is that where you
2
were?
blocks long. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were on Melrose Avenue, which is very long and where all the stores are and where you guys shot walking down. At Melrose Place was actually a very short street that hits La Cienega.
Just a little cut through street.
But that was really and now it's very chic and expensive and people will come here. I've been told, like, oh, Melrose Place. They think that's the street, but no, that's not at all.
It's for shops for sure. The shower, did it get fancy?
I think it got fancier later. But I think that the cinematographer, the director, or Darren or someone was like, let's just get that right there, that corner with that street sign.
That was great.
It was just so great because you could see that she's looking for something. She's checking her paper, and the camera catches,
which is what you have to do back for someplace. Yeah, right? No GPS.
You should have had your big Thomas guide.
Yeah, New Yorkers don't have Thomas guides.
We used to have a map, for those of you who don't know, that was like literally like a phone book. Spiral was our map of LA.
So then we cut to Jane and Michael at home in the morning. Michael is urging Jane to get on the decorating committee for an event at the hospital. She doesn't want to do it because she thinks it's going to be all the old biddy doctors' wives. Michael tells her that it's important to him, and he also thinks that she should do it to meet people. He bribes Jane with lunch if she'll go. And then he leaves for work, saying he's off to meet Scott, a top pediatrician at the hospital, for some sailing before work. Just some quick sailing.
Yeah, because who doesn't go sailing before work?
Especially
I went
doctors.
Sailing before I came here.
I think
sure.
doctors.
I saw you guys out on the water. Remember that?
Well, we just did it quickly before work. It was quick. And we're back with the beautiful brunette in black. She's entering the courtyard as Michael is leaving. And she tells Michael that she's here for the apartment vacancy. She makes a comment about the sun being maybe smaller in New York. Feels hot here. Right. And she wants to confirm that there are 2 bedrooms in the available unit. Nope, Michael tells her, only a studio. But then Rhonda appears and she says that she's actually looking for a roommate. No thanks, the brunette says. She prefers to live alone.
And it's perfect because Rhonda's energy is so enthusiastic. She's
like, hey.
Bouncing. Joe's all cool in New York. She's like, hey, I want a roommate. You just see Joe's face going,
no thanks. I like to live alone.
And did you notice when she put her arm around me and I'm like,
sort of a contrast in warm and cold. And Rhonda suggests, well, okay, maybe we could swap apartments. Rhonda suggests she'll take the studio apartment and this newcomer can have the 2-bedroom. Then Jane enters the scene. Michael heads off for work and we learn that this is Joe Reynolds. No E. as the girls walk up the stairs to check
I
out.
love that.
Rhonda's
Joe, no E.
2-bedroom. Yeah.
She turns around. That's to you, right? I turn around and go,
Not
Joe,
to
no
me,
E.
It's to
I mean, it was to me at home,
Rhonda and
but yeah.
Jane. You're introducing yourself.
Joe,
and-
no E. But yeah.
Joe
and they're
Reynolds,
so
no-
perky.
Joe,
They're
no E.
extra super perky that day.
Yeah,
and
super
you just
friendly.
look like
Yeah.
it's a lot. You already look like it's a lot.
Yeah.
You're a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
You're a lot.
Don't scare me away. I might move somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
I know. And you had to say in the first scene, can I just see it before you guys move me in?
Yeah,
'Cause
before
everyone's
you
like,
move me
"Yay,
in."
yay, let's
That's
have a party in the
hilarious.
barn.
So
So
she
she
like
looks-
a horror movie because we know what the building turns out to
Right.
be. This is like the beginning of a horror film. This
But for
moment.
now, it looks like a really nice apartment. So Jane and Rhonda are really friendly. Joe takes a look around the place. She approves. She's not quite matching the friendly, but then she asks how soon Rhonda can be out today.
Well, but first you're walking through the house and it's like, everybody's really friendly here. It's super nice. And you go, oh, so cozy.
Okay.
All
But I
right.
love how like
If
the
it must
business
be.
is, as if it's like this huge ranch house or something sprawling.
Yeah.
It's like you walk in, there's not a lot to look, but she's looking in the refrigerator.
She opens Rhonda's fridge.
I know. I thought that was
Yeah.
funny.
Let me see
too.
what you got. And I'm like, oh, the spices are all alphabetized. Scary.
Still.
From Carrie, the roommate. But wait, I just want to say, I remember all this. And again, like I'm thinking in my head, okay, how does a quote unquote New Yorker do this? Like she's moving, she's used to moving fast. She gets stuff done. She just needs to look, assess the information and then give a thing. So I remember, because again, it was my first time with you guys and the intimidation of a whole crew that knows what they're doing. You guys been doing this for half a year already, right? And also it was TV. So things were like, here's your mark, then go there. It was kind of like sped up and things were just different from what I was used to. And so as I'm watching this, I'm just going, good job. Stay on it. That's good. Good actor. Okay. Just move. Go to there. Now look in there. Okay, good. She's got it. You know what I mean? Because I was intimidated as well, being something
That's
so
crazy
new.
to hear that because it's so funny. And that's your experience as Daphne, but the
Yeah.
character comes off as the intimidating one, right? She's
Yeah.
just so confident and she's, like direct and the rest of the gang is like, oh, good, a new friend. And
Like
and
puppies.
Joe's
We were
like,
like
yeah, not so fast.
Yeah.
I just thought all the sophistication and stuff was your character was the one intimidating. It's
Yeah.
so interesting to hear that you were.
And it's probably
intimidated.
like the acting trick of using it, right? So you're
Yeah.
intimidated, but it also happened to work for the character and you used it. It really
you
worked
just
well.
used it.
Yeah.
You can just hide behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she wonders if Rhonda can get out today. And Rhonda's like, sure.
I know. Sure. I'm
was
like,
amazing.
excuse me.
I
yeah.
love that writing. She's
I
like,
couldn't
so
get out
when
of
can
one
you be out?
room in one day.
She's like, when can you be out? Today. Just answer the question so I can get the information so I can move on. I don't need to
So we can
deal
get
with
on
you as
with
a
the
person.
episode.
And
Yeah.
she
Get out of
and
Jay.
here's the Rhonda who says sure. Like,
Yeah.
who
Okay.
else is gonna say
Yeah.
sure? Sweet girl. So then she leaves and says, all right, it's settled. So just out the door she goes. And then Jane wonders out loud if Joe always gets her way. So then we cut back to the marina where they're just getting in a quick sail for work. Michael is helping Scott with the sailboat. He's listening to Scott tell him the virtues of becoming a plastic surgeon. Get rich, retire young, patients rarely die. He lists as all the positive reasons to be that. And Michael says, yeah, but you are great with the kids. Scott says he's happy to introduce Michael around. There's a mixer coming up, should be good networking. And then their beepers go off and they head back to the hospital for their rounds.
Scott seems great.
He seems
so cool.
And
And that
Michael,
he's
white
the
man
greatest.
afro thing.
so far, really great.
Yeah, really great.
So then we cut to Jane. She's in the break room or in the staff room talking with a woman who we learn is Scott's wife, Liz, and they're working on the decorating ideas for the mixer. And Michael and Scott come back from their sailing. Jane tells Michael how much she has in common with Liz. They both work. They're both new to LA. They don't know anyone. And it's instant friendship, she says. And they make plans to go to dinner, all four of them together that night. Double date. Back in the courtyard, Jake is examining a very large box that's been deposited in front of his apartment door. And Joe comes down the stairs saying, that's my box. It's photography equipment. And Jake introduces himself Joe recognizes him as a motorcycle aficionado from the download that Rhonda had given
Except
Joe.
I said aficionado.
Oh, well.
And I'm like,
I didn't
seriously?
notice.
No ADR on that one line? You didn't?
Maybe that's how he pronounced it
Did
in
you
the
notice?
90s.
Maybe
No, I
that's
didn't
how.
notice.
I don't know. Maybe she's trying to be cool and I don't know.
Okay, first example of Daphne being a little bit
Yeah,
hard
now
or
you know how I
self-critical.
feel.
Yeah,
I know.
you're gonna notice every little thing.
Remember
I
you would
noticed
say like you just want to go
chemistry.
back and shoot stuff? I would want to
Yeah,
reshoot
just
that.
do that word. Chemistry between you and Grant. So good. Right off the
Right
bat.
off
I was
the
like,
bat.
ooh, hello.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
And Joe says to him, yeah, from what I was told, you're the silent type. I am the private type. By
Yeah.
comparison.
Get your nose out of my boxes.
Yeah, but it's still a little bit of a challenge. Like,
Yeah.
it's cute and flirty off the bat, but she's also like putting up the hand. Jake tries to help her with the box. She lets him. As they're going for the stairs, Jake tells Joe she's got the best unit in the building. And Joe replies, so I've been told.
And then Jake says, it's right above mine.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness.
Just in
I
case
need
you're
some ice
wondering where
water.
to find me.
Mhm.
So I'm, of course, as Joe, thinking he's meaning my ass because he's
Which
behind me.
That was the
and
line.
then
Yeah.
he goes, your apartment, dummy. And I'm like, oh. And I just thought that was like, okay.
I just
I don't
thought it
know.
was really
Embarrassing.
cute and bold.
Cute.
And
Yeah, bold. This shows
yep.
her boldness.
Yeah, I love it. So then they enter the apartment. He brings a box into the apartment, adding it to all the other boxes. And Joe tells Jake, be careful. That's my photography equipment.
You have to establish in every scene that you're a photographer.
Yeah.
They say it in every single.
5
Just to be
times in
clear.
every
Got
scene.
it.
Yes.
Wait, are you a photographer?
Yeah. So these are equipment for my photography.
Oh,
We're going to put some pictures up for my photography. Yeah.
Then Jake gives Joe the lowdown on the water in the building, that if one or the other is showering, it can affect the temperature. So generally take short showers. And
Which feels insanely intimate.
yeah.
Yes.
And like,
Doesn't it?
yeah, shouldn't Rhonda have maybe said something about that too? Like,
Yeah.
that's great, but you have to take really
They,
short
had, they
showers.
need the
Jake didn't
entire
tell
audience
Rhonda.
figuring you guys all naked showering. It's like,
I
what-
mean,
what is happening?
yeah.
It seemed like a new feature. We were just
Didn't we
learning
have
about
a
it.
nice Melrose line in there? Isn't this where he says when I'm hot,
it's
you're
coming.
cold? Or
It's-
what
no,
is it,
that's-
Laura?
It's coming.
But we
yeah.
both say it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, first you say, I'll think of you every time I shower.
Well, but
Yes.
not in the scene.
right.
Oh,
The,
so-
the hot and
Courtney,
cold.
you
No,
and I
that's
are.
no, that's in this scene. I'll think of
Okay.
you every time I shower. The hot and cold is in another scene.
Yeah.
They
Wait, no,
really
you are
spice it
right.
up.
I will think of
Okay.
you every time I shower.
Yes,
Yes.
that was in
You're
this scene.
absolutely right. As he's leaving, he also offers to show her around town. And Joe says, thanks, I'll just take a cab.
Yeah.
And
Sign of the times, not Uber.
And the audience is like, is every woman in this building stupid?
yes, every
Yeah.
single.
No wonder we're friends. Neither one of us can see
Yeah.
what's right in front of our nose.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's where she says, well, I'll think of you every time I shower. Wink, wink. And he's going downstairs. Now she's alone, Joe, in her apartment, picks up the phone and she dials and leaves a message for her dad saying that she's in LA, she's fine, and for him not to worry.
Yeah. So we
And she
see her
sounds
something
sad.
cloud over her. She
Yeah.
seems sad. There's something going on in the backstory.
Yep.
Which there is.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They got so good at creating this whole character in a very short period.
Yeah,
of
we
time.
learned a
It's
lot.
great. Yeah, so great.
Yeah.
Also, is she a photographer?
I think so. Maybe we'll
Okay.
find out in the next
Okay,
scene.
go- Yeah, let's find out. Let's find out.
So we cut to Montesino's, an exterior of a restaurant. Apparently, it was also used on Beverly Hills 90210 for anyone who's paying very close
Wow.
attention. And Jane and Michael are there at dinner with Scott and Liz. Liz is recounting a story of how she was trying to fix the plumbing at the house. The tub, the shower, and the kitchen sink were all broken. So she's under the sink and she's trying to fix things. Scott interjects to make sure that everyone knows she was totally naked while doing this.
Right.
And she wants to finish the story. And the story ends with Liz telling everyone that she had fallen face first into the shutoff valve. And all this is an explanation for what has caused the bruising on her face.
Yes. And he's also insulting her in the way she's telling a story. You know, she kept using the word seriously. I
Yeah.
was seriously tight. I was seriously totally naked. So what was the word? Wasn't that the word?
I think it was seriously.
And she repeated it. And then he's like, he mocks her
He's
and then
mocking
shuts
her.
her up. And you're just like, oh, he's more fun than I thought.
Yeah, even more.
This is when we start to see some red flags.
Totally.
Mhm,
And Jane
mhm.
reassures her, it's not that bad, the bruising on her face. She's sort of like, it's okay. And not a great look for Scott. But then we're back with Allison and Billy in their apartment. Allison is going to check the fridge, realizing she's not hungry, and she tells Billy she's just going to go to bed. Yes, it's 8:30 p.m., but I'm going to bed. Billy tells Allison, you've been sleeping 15-hour days since you broke up with Keith. Billy asks Allison if she's crying in a room, processing her feelings, or sleeping. And Allison says to Billy that he's crossing the line and he's just nosy.
Don't
and
you
annoying.
love that
Leave me
Billy
alone.
is Allison's therapist? Like
And
he's just taking it upon himself to heal her.
Are you processing your feelings here?
He's such a nosy old
I
biddy
think
in this
he's so
scene.
happy
He's
that
just
he
like,
has you
"Dude, take
back."
up some knitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wants you better.
Well, that's a very cute way to say it. I'm sure he was so annoyed that he had to go, are you crying? Are you having feelings in there? It's like, what guy, honestly? What?
Yeah.
Reading women's magazines and reading the
that was
quizzes to
great.
me.
He wanted to make sure she's
Well, we open
processing her
up with
feelings.
his 12 or 14 steps of
I know.
whatever.
That was really funny, though, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And Billy worries that Allison is going to call Keith.
Yeah.
And Allison insists she won't, that it's over between them. The whole experience with Keith has changed her, she says, and she will never be her old self again.
Wow.
So all of these things he's trying to get you to do the jogging, not go to sleep, is so you'll be your old self again. And then she says, have you ever thought that was so huge an event that I will never be that old self again? I don't know. Poor Billy. He just doesn't get life. Life is so much more complicated when you're not playing soccer.
He's really the emotional know-it-all here. Like he's, saying
very cute
all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Then we're at the restaurant at night in the ladies' room where Liz is telling Jane that Scott says Michael is the best new intern at the hospital. The ladies then talk about whether they each have kids. Liz says she and Scott are too busy to have kids. And Jane wants to help Liz with a stain that she notices on her jacket, and removing the jacket reveals bruises.
Finger-shaped bruises. They were well done.
Very
like somebody
deliberately.
grabbed her. Yeah.
Yeah. And Liz is defensive and says it's nothing, and she walks out of the bathroom. Then at Jane and Michael's apartment, Michael is vacuuming the living room floor. Jane is mopping the kitchen floor. And Michael tells Jane it's ridiculous to think that Liz's bruises came from Scott. And Scott is a great doctor. He's great with the kids. And maybe Jane is just seeing things that aren't there.
And we see little glimmers of the Michael that will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like,
Well, you're seeing things.
I'm seeing already reminiscent of last episodes. Oh, you're overreacting.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's
Gaslighting
no
her.
big deal, and
Yeah.
we'll just get you a puppy. He's just like, so
Yeah.
just these women
Do you
are
need a
so
puppy
like
again?
Yeah, at least let's get Liz a puppy.
I mean,
Yeah.
let's get Liz a puppy.
I think Liz just needs a puppy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then Jane says, yeah, maybe you're right. I did just see a movie about this kind of thing last week based on a true story. So maybe he sort of talks her into doubting.
Yeah.
Which really doesn't work. You feel like the bruises were so clearly
Very clear.
hands
Yeah,
that I think if that scene had been shot first, she would have said, there's no way I made that up. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's one of those where you shoot out of order and you don't really
Yeah.
know what you're going to
Perhaps
see.
that's right. Exactly.
I would guess that because I'm sure Josie would have been like, no, there's no way. But
There's
right.
Then at Joe's apartment during the day, Billy comes by bringing a plant as a welcome
I'd
gift.
forgotten I had a scene with Billy.
How
He's bringing that huge plant and he puts it on a table. It's like a floor plant. It's like this high. And I'm
Again,
just like
Billy doing all the right things, bringing a welcome plant to the new neighbor.
Where's Doug, by the way? Not in real life, in the show.
Yeah, no,
Laura's
no,
like,
no.
I think he's
No.
home.
I think
where-
you're right. It was me
Show.
thinking I don't think we really saw him.
no, he's not in this
Why
episode.
isn't he in the middle of all this stuff
Wait
helping?
a
He's so
minute.
helpful.
They put one of those.
He's dealing with his lawsuit, right? Matt was
Yeah.
supposed to be dealing with a lawsuit, but he didn't really.
Maybe they got
appear.
pushback from that last episode and they sort of kept him quiet. But I miss
Or-
him because he should be the one welcoming and,
Or it's possible that he had a scene, and then when they edited the
could
episode
have
and it
cut
went
it.
long, maybe the scene was dropped, and all of a sudden he just didn't even make it. It's exactly. Then the
Is he the
tumbleweeds
only
start
one?
to come out for
Yeah,
his
he's
door.
the only one. Really.
Yeah.
Didn't-
This is
Okay.
when the tumbleweeds maybe were.
Tumbleweeds.
Jenny Garth, Jana Kramer, Amy Robach, and TJ Holmes bring you I Do Part 2, a one-of-a-kind experiment in podcasting to help you find love again. If you didn't get it right the first time, it's time to try again as they guide you through this podcast experiment in dating.
Hey, I'm Jana Kramer. As they say, those that cannot do, teach. Actually, I think I finally got it right, so take the failures I've had the second or even third or whatever, maybe the fourth time around.
I'm Jenny Garth. 29 years ago, Kelly Taylor said these words, "I choose me." She made her choice. She chose herself. When it comes to love, choose you first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Robach.
And I'm TJ Holmes, and we are, well, not necessarily relationship experts. If you're ready to dive back into the dating pool and find lasting love, finally, we want to help.
Listen to I Do Part 2 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, I'm Marie.
And I'm Sydney. And we're mess.
Well, not a mess, but on our podcast called Mess, we celebrate all things messy.
But the gag is, not everything is a mess. Sometimes it's just living.
Yeah, things like J-Lo on her third divorce.
Living. Girls' trip to Miami.
Mess.
Ozempic.
Messy,
skinny living.
Restaurant stealing a birthday cake. Mess.
Wait, what flavor was the cake, though?
Okay, that's a good question.
Hooking up with someone in accounting and then getting a promotion.
Living. Breaking up with your girlfriend while on Instagram Live.
Living.
It's kind of mess.
Yeah. Well, you get it.
Got it?
Live, love, mess. Listen to Mess with Sydney Washington and Marie Faustin on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey guys, I'm Kate Max. You might know me from my popular online series, The Running Interview Show, where I run with celebrities, athletes, entrepreneurs, and more. After those runs, the conversations keep going. That's what my podcast, Post Run High, is all about. It's a chance to sit down with my guests and dive even deeper into their stories, their journeys, and the thoughts that arise once we've hit the pavement together. You know that rush of endorphins you feel after a great workout? Well, that's when the real magic happens. So if you love hearing real, inspiring stories from the people you know, follow, and admire, join me every week for Post Run High. It's where we take the conversation beyond the run and get into the heart of it all. It's lighthearted, pretty crazy, and very fun. Listen to Post Run High on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Gianna Prudenti. And I'm Jamae Jackson Gadsden. We're the hosts of Let's Talk Offline, the early career podcast from LinkedIn News and iHeart Podcasts.
One of the most exciting things about having your first real job is that first real paycheck. You're probably thinking, yay, I can finally buy a new phone.
Mm-hmm. But you also have a lot of questions, like, how should I be investing this money? I mean, how much do I save? And what about my 401k?
Well, we're talking with finance expert Vivian Tu, aka your rich BFF, to break it all down.
I always get roasted on the internet when I say this out loud, but I'm like, every single year you need to be asking for a raise of somewhere between 10 to 15%. I'm not saying you're going to get 15% every single year, but if you ask for 10 to 15 and you end up getting 8, that is actually a true raise.
Listen to this week's episode of Let's Talk Offline on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I found out I was related to the guy that I was dating.
I don't feel emotions correctly.
I am talking to a felon right now, and I cannot decide if I like him or not.
Those were some callers from my call-in podcast, Therapy Gecko. It's a show where I take real phone calls from anonymous strangers all over the world as a fake gecko therapist and try to dig into their brains and learn a little bit about their lives. I know that's a weird concept, but I promise it's pretty interesting if you give it a shot. Matter of fact, here's a few more examples of the kinds of calls we get on this show.
I live with my boyfriend, and I found his piss jar in our apartment.
I collect my roommate's toenails and fingernails. I have very overbearing parents. Even at the age of 29, they won't let me move out of their house.
So if you want an excuse to get out of your own head and see what's going on in someone else's head, search for Therapy Gecko on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's the one with the green guy on it.
Joe asks Billy, hey, I've been meaning to ask, where's the laundry room? Billy tells her where it's going to be. It's going to be in the basement.
Because she's got this tiny, it looks like a lunch bag of laundry. What do you have, like 2 pairs of
it's
underpants and a
tiny.
bra?
She like needs to wash this one thing.
She needs to wash his hand towel.
She's like, oh, do you know where it is? Do you know where the laundry room is?
My favorite pair of socks needs to be washed.
It's so tiny.
And then, yeah. It was,
And Billy picks up Joe's camera asking, oh, are you an amateur or professional photographer? Joe says, she's an amateur.
I'm
but
sorry,
she's
is she a photographer?
Wait, this is where we, did we
my
just
gosh.
learn this
Okay,
here?
Interesting. Who
And
knew?
that she's hoping to be professional. And Billy tells her, we're kind of in related fields. I'm a writer. And Joe sort of
mocks him.
Makes
It's
a
like
joke.
all full of insults.
I didn't. It was a very New Yorker.
You're a writer.
I didn't know there were any real writers in LA.
Yeah, no, because you guys can't read or write here because we're the smart
Did I mention I'm
people
from
in
New York?
City. Yeah.
And
y'all
I'm a
are shallow. Do you surf as well as write your novels? Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Billy
I love
says-
his line.
Yeah. He's super annoying. He's like, well, if you people from New York hate LA so much, why do you all move out here then?
Boom.
Good point.
I wanted to know that question.
Yeah.
You guys have experienced that, right?
Yeah.
Back in the
Yeah.
day. I mean, now I don't notice, but so many New Yorkers, especially actors, would move out here and complain about it.
Yes.
I'm like, what are you doing here?
By the pool. They complain about it by the
By
pool.
the pool.
Yeah.
In the sunshine. And Joe says, well, I guess some of us just need a change. Then the phone rings. Billy picks up the handset and Joe takes it out of his hand and just hangs it up. It's probably a wrong number or a sales call, she says.
Yeah, he clocks that. That's an
Or
odd
something
thing.
from her past.
Yeah. Trying to find her.
Definitely clocks it. And he leaves saying, all right, well, see you around. Thanks, Bill, she says.
Yeah, Bill. Thanks, Bill.
on his way
I
out.
love it.
And this is the note that I wrote here. Daphne, you are so pretty.
Oh, thank you.
You're just so pretty in this scene.
I
In all
kept
the
thinking,
scenes.
like, oh my God, you're wearing those bare arm shirt. Like, no, put on a sweater because
No,
1 minute,
don't.
like, they're gonna see that they're not perfect arms. And
You're
I'm like, it never
perfect
happened.
and
They were pretty
gorgeous.
perfect.
You're just like,
Really?
there's-
Were you thinking that then?
No, I was thinking that now watching it. My insecurities since then.
That's so
showed up.
interesting.
Your brain now
I'm
is
still
like
wearing
projecting.
sleeveless because I
know,
just don't
because you
care.
can. You guys, I just want to talk to the audience for a second because we're in a whole different era now. It's much more body positive. Everyone is who they are. We're not trying to kill ourselves and diet ourselves to death and anorexia ourselves to, which we all were doing. Actresses were doing in the 80s, 70s too.
Oh, I think it's still happening more than
Well, maybe,
we
but
like
I
to
mean,
think,
you're
but-
seeing in shows, you're seeing on commercials, you're seeing on TV, all kinds of people, like how we normally look, how people just
There's more for
look.
sure.
And so, but when I was young, working actress all the time, I didn't have that mentality of just be you. It was always like shave something off, be something different, fix that somehow, change it, be more this, be more that, whatever it was. I always just thought I had to be more something else. Yeah. So,
well, I know it's
yeah.
hard. It's hard to shake that, but like,
Yeah.
I hope that you're like, I'm just looking at this gorgeous young woman. This is you on the screen. It's just like your younger self, and it's like remembering that we knew each other back at that time
Yeah.
in our lives is
That's
crazy,
crazy.
because you just you
Yeah.
evolve with yourself as you age, and then here you are. We
Yeah.
get to just have this time capsule,
Yeah.
and it's just such a gift to be able to watch it back. And I don't know.
I'm not just criticizing myself. I also do remember as I was watching this of loving being there. I love that I have an apartment. I love that I belong part of this whole set, because when you do films, it's very fleeting. You do a scene in an office and you do a scene over there, then you do a scene. I don't know. I just remember feeling like, wow, I can settle in here. I was really excited
So
to be
nice.
there.
For
Having
Daphne and for
at
Joe.
the end of a season, when you know you're coming back and you leave your stuff when you're in the dressing room, it's really special. Like, it's very rare to work together for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's really rare. It's
Yeah.
special.
Yep. So then we're in Jane is hanging a welcome new intern sign at the event that they're setting up for. And she starts to play the piano, telling Jane that it's her escape. Jane says, yeah, I wish I had something like that. And they talk about how tough the doctor's jobs are and how it's not really easy on them either. And then Liz confides in Jane how different it used to be with Scott when they were first married, and that the pressure from the job, she admits that sometimes Scott gets angry, very angry.
I was thinking about how wonderful she is, the actor, and how hard it is to be a guest star and to come in with this kind of storyline. And I'm so impressed because you come into a family. I know you having that experience because it was your first episode, Daph, but you come in and I thought, wow, to carry this load, she did such a great job. They both did.
Yeah,
Like,
her name is Lisa Waltz.
Well, yeah, she was wonderful.
Lisa Waltz, and she was really terrific in this episode. And
Really
I actually thought the
terrific.
same thing too, because it was such heavy lifting, and we'll get into those really heavy scenes in a second. But terrific storyline for her, and she was amazing. And so Liz tells Jane she's glad that they have met, and she's wants to change the subject, and she's going to take Jane out to lunch. Then we are down in the laundry room. Allison is doing laundry and she comes across Keith's shirt and has a moment of feeling sad about that. When Joe walks downstairs next to Allison, puts her clothes in the dryer. And when the dryer won't start, Joe kind of tries to smack it, make it work. And Allison tells Joe to kick it, which she does. And Allison says, no, not like that, on the side. And then she begins to show her how.
There.
Pretty soon, both Allison and Joe are kicking the crap out of the dryer. They're kicking and kicking and kicking, and then finally laughing about it together.
I totally remember that.
I do remember that. And it was a great way out of that scene because Allison's so sad about finding the shirt. We've all had that moment when you go through a breakup and then you find something of theirs in your room. It just brings it all back. It's so sad.
Yeah.
I don't know if I smelled it. I should have. Was I
You
too
did.
young?
You
I did
did.
smell it. Oh, thank God. See, I
think
did
you
know I was
did.
paying attention.
Yeah, I think you did.
And then you and I have two great lines. Let's do them. You do yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just broke up with my husband. What's your excuse?
I just broke up with somebody else's husband. It's such a cute line.
And then my
It's
face
such a
goes,
cute-
huh? And then I go, and then I feel for you. And I'm like, well, this is us, complex ladies.
Yeah.
And then the dryer kicks back on. But I totally remember doing that. I just thought it was like years later or something.
It was such a cute scene, and like a way for both of these characters to take out their aggressions on what they're going through, and just like stuff that they're not really sharing entirely, but like, let's take it out on the dryer.
Yes, and to
but they
connect
bonded.
right away, right?
Mhm.
Really to connect right away. And I was so happy to hear Allison finally acknowledge I was with somebody else's husband. Like he wasn't mine. He belonged to somebody else. I
And
was
she-
glad to
yeah.
hear her finally
Yeah.
admit that.
Right.
So they formally introduce themselves to one another, and the dryer starts working, and the girls laugh. And we then cut to the car at night. Jane and Michael are driving home, or driving to the intern mixer, I should say. And then Jane tells Michael that she thinks Liz is asking for help to get away from her husband's abuse. And Michael is doubtful again and says, Liz is intelligent. She would know where to go. She's smart. She can take care of herself, asks for proof. And Jane says, I've seen the bruises. And he tells Jane that it would ruin Scott's career to accuse him of domestic abuse over just a couple of bruises and a look in Liz's eye that only you can see.
And also, I feel like
Diminishes Jane's.
Yeah, and let's not forget what's at stake for Michael. If Scott's career is derailed, that means his chance at climbing up the ladder is derailed, and so he has stuff at stake here. And I think it's why he just minimizes like a couple of bruises. You know what I mean? Like, no, because he has something at stake there. Like, and it's kind of still the argument today. Oh, that would destroy him. Oh, that would wreck everything. That would wreck everything. Guess what, folks?
Yeah.
Everything's already wrecked. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
because
that's
he's
the
doing that
argument
to
a lot.
his
Like
woman.
for date rape. Yeah. I was thinking of date rape and like, don't say anything. You'll ruin his career when women were attacked. So that's what's so important about the Me Too movement. That people start saying, wait a minute, I get to say what happened to me. Your feelings are not your quote, future is not more important than you getting away with what happened to me. And I think that I'm sure Thomas probably was like, I'm kind of a jerk in this, but he was representing a viewpoint that's really common.
Yeah.
Don't upset the apple cart.
Yep.
Be careful. You could hurt
Status
him.
quo.
Completely missing. He's hurting her all the time.
Yeah.
It's as if his career is more important than her not being beaten or a woman not being attacked. It's fascinating, but it's true. Like that's in our culture.
Yes.
That's a part of our culture.
Well, because
still, this was 30 years ago and still.
Yeah, well, because they're part of a hospital. They're part of a very important career.
Yeah.
It's medical school.
Yes.
It's the hospitals. There's boards and
he's
decisions.
important. He's
and
an
he has to
important
get
doctor.
Holding him accountable for his actions
How do
could
you
hurt his
argue?
career.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And
And
so
he should
we're
still be held
perceived, or
accountable.
she's perceived as being this little thing that's niggling, that's in the way. You're wrecking the whole picture, but it's not. The whole picture includes his actions, guys.
Yeah.
That's part of the picture, and you're wrecking it for yourself.
As if she's being a troublemaker, like just right.
And Michael sort of ends the conversation saying, this is between Scott and Liz. There's nothing we can do. And Jane is bothered by that non-response.
Another problem, people, that whole mentality of, what happens behind these
We
walls.
should go
are-
over time, like Jane and Michael's house. Like the curtains should be red. There should be red flags just on the walls.
Red everywhere.
Decoration.
More like she's going to
Some
decorate in red
banners.
flags. Yeah, she's starting to
She's
frame
just making
the red
her way
flag.
through them as she goes through her day.
So then we cut to the party where Scott and Michael are mingling at the mixer. Liz is sitting by herself at a table. Jane goes over to talk to her, and Liz sort of tries to avoid conversation. Won't even kind of look at her. And Jane persists, saying, he's hit you, hasn't he? And Liz tries to tell Jane to stop. Jane persists. And Liz said she admits it was only one time, but she was begging Jane to stop. And she's looking over at Scott, and she doesn't want Scott to see that they're talking. And she says she doesn't want to make Scott angry. Leave me alone, she says to Jane, and she walks away.
And you feel that trap, right?
Yeah.
Which is she can't stand up for herself because that will make him mad. If she gets help, that will make him mad. She's so stuck. It's such a
Anything
lonely
not to make
place.
him mad.
And
yeah.
I love the way they did the scene where she's sitting alone and Jane comes up with all of Josie's wonderful warmth. And she gets up because she can't sit with somebody because of her shame, because of what was done to her. It's really well handled when she walks away alone.
And then isn't in the same scene as when he walks up. She walks off, and then the abusive husband walks up.
Yep.
And says to Jane very calmly, but insinuating, you're putting your nose where it doesn't belong. Kind of threatening her, but he can't really.
Yeah, that's
Then
exactly what
also
happens.
trying to find out what she knows, like trying to find out if she knows. Yeah.
That control.
And it is very threatening when he comes up to Jane after Liz has left, and he says, I don't know what she told you. And by the way, do you know where she is? And Jane won't reveal. Well, I'm not going to tell you where she went. And
he grabs her arm twice.
And
Josie so beautifully just looks down. Like, you can take that off. I'm not.
And he says, is everything okay? While he grabs her arm, and Jane pulls it away. And then Michael walks up and asks them to join the party. Scott tells Michael he needs to introduce Michael to Marinello, a pediatric surgeon and a diehard Italian. He says he's being, bros with Michael.
Yeah,
and
bros.
Scott looks back at Jane and says, if you see Liz, tell her I'm looking for her. And that's where the threat is. Like, if you see her, tell her I'm looking for her. And so it's a threat to both of them.
And it's
really,
insinuating because you put your nose in, you're now a part of it.
If you know something.
And anything you do is going to cause me to go have a chat with her. So your involvement causes her pain. That's how I got it.
Yep.
Wow.
Like, you better, it's one thing to say, because he knows I can't hurt you. Like, you better lay off or I'm going to hurt you. It's like, you stay in, I hurt her. Ugh. Horrible threat.
So then we're in the staff room at the hospital. Michael is reading a book, and Scott walks in saying, Mancini, hey, you avoiding me? Scott tells Michael that Liz told him what Jane insinuated. And Michael says, it's none of my business. Scott sits down and tells Michael that he's never struck his wife and he never would. And he starts defending himself, telling Michael what a rumor like Jane is starting would do to his career. And he insists he would never. And Michael says, I know, but he looks doubtful. Then Scott changes the subject, asks Michael if he wants to observe a valve replacement. And Michael says, sure. Scott leaves the room looking back at Michael. Then we cut to Joe's apartment at night. Allison and Joe are having drinks at Joe's apartment, and they're toasting to any good men out there. Are there
And
any?
did you notice
wonder?
her great vest? Again, another sleeveless vest. But I mean, I love that outfit. I remember that vest.
Oh,
it was
great.
like with the gold kind of shiny stuff around the collar and the beaded stuff. I mean, that's Denise, she was fantastic.
Yeah,
she really
she
was.
really
Because,
was.
Joe came from, there was money in her marriage, and listening to it now, I go, oh yeah, there was all this stuff in the.
And it comes out in the clothes.
And it comes out in the clothes and her sort of attitude. And
I just noticed in this scene that you guys were having a party and I wasn't there.
Oh,
I was like, oh, that looks so fun. And I'm having total FOMO.
I know, it's
It was
weird,
so
isn't
weird
it? We
to
didn't even
see.
know you then, Laura. That's what's so weird.
But like, exactly. I didn't exist. Like, I think at this time,
You were-
Sydney was, by the way, in like a denial because so far Jane is only that she's an only child.
Yeah.
But in truth, I think right about now, I was probably headed to my first audition for Melrose. Probably right about now.
Yeah, because you come in 4 later, right?
Uh-huh. So I feel like my first audition was maybe happening right around this time. Well, you guys are having a party without me.
Yeah.
But this weird thing of watching it is like, look at you guys every week, sometimes more than once a week, that we talk all the time. And like, I'm looking at you on screen going, wait, I should be there.
Having done all this talking up until now, I feel like that was 1 to 14 was another show. And now it's catching up to the show, obviously, because Joe's in it. But I remember this is the show I remember being a part of. You know what I mean? And you're going to feel that. Like,
Courtney's been warning us.
This is the Melrose
and
place.
then now you're having this experience. She's like, just wait. When you guys are on, it's a totally different.
It really does feel different. It's really super fun.
Yeah.
I thought in the beginning of this scene, because we had so much energy, I thought, did we have a welcome party? And it was just the two of us. Like, no, we're having our own little party.
Yeah,
but
our
I
own
also
little after party after the kicking the laundry room soiree.
It's like you've definitely decided to be friends, and like you're having looks like margaritas and maybe a little tipsy.
Whatever,
it's
we're
just
tipsy.
Cute. Oh,
yeah, it was really
so cute. But anyway, they're wondering if there's even any good men out there. I don't need them, Allison says, and she takes another big gulp of her drink. And Joe tells Allison that they're on their own, and she, for one, intends to flourish. Allison then notices a framed photograph on the floor, black and white, and says it's bleak. This is where I think maybe she's a photographer.
I'm a
Do you think she?
Well, you say who is that and who took it?
Yeah. Joe says the photo is supposed to say repressed, not bleak, and that the photo is one of her, the married version of her, that is.
There's a very funny moment, though, when Allison goes,
You go, who is it? And I'm
but
like,
it's so
it's
clearly
me.
you. It's a gorgeous picture, by the way. I hope you still have one of those.
I don't.
Oh, wouldn't that be a great
That
piece
would
of
be a
memorabilia
great picture to have. It was
That is cool.
gorgeous.
Darn it.
And then you go, your reading was great. You go, who is that? And I go, it's me. And you're like, I see that. And I'm like, the repressed me. I'm like, the totally like wasted out of this world, dark me.
No. And then Joe shares with Allison that her marriage was never the real kind of love. And Allison asks Joe why she got married. Joe tells her that she was 20 when she got married and she ended up mistaking security for love.
Yep.
But she does miss that penthouse apartment with a view of the river.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe says, all right, this place is getting depressing. Where is the nearest hotspot?
Cut to Shooters. Our closest hotspot.
The nearest hotspot
Apparently
is
the only
Shooters.
bar in Los Angeles.
Yeah, right.
And Allison and Joe are playing pool, and they've lost 4 times to 2 guys. Handing over the money they've just lost, Joe tells the guys what amazing pool players they are. But can we just play one more game?
2 guys who they clearly said, we want guys with about shoulder length hair, olive complected brown hair. We'll get 2 of them.
Super grungy.
They
Yeah.
look like twins.
And the guy says, sure, we'll take your money again. This time I want to even raise the stakes for a night out with Allison and Joe if they win. And Joe says, all right, but for me, if I win, it's $70.
And poor Allison is just rolling her eyes.
She's
Like
like,
they're rolling in her head like a great, oh, geez, Louise.
And they've already lost 4 times. Allison doesn't expect to win this one, but the guys take the bet.
I mean, I
And-
feel like Allison is so out of her element. Don't
I'm
you get
so-
like,
she
where
is.
have I
I'm
been?
so-
I've
Yeah.
been with an older guy out of the beach. Like, is this what happened?
And Joe is taking her down this path.
I mean,
like,
she's
come on,
totally like
we-
looking for trouble.
We got this. Come with me, Allison. And the guys tell Joe to break him. Allison is very nervous, but she does break the ball. And then Joe dominates on the pool table, clearing the table on her first turns, looking at some point to Allison saying, ready, Thelma? To Allison.
Yep.
She clears the table and then they ask
She
the
wins.
the guys for the $70 they owe. They accuse her of hustling, which she points out they were doing before. And Dwayne tells
ladylike.
Dwayne, I guess has a name, tells Joe that she's not very ladylike.
I'm so glad we didn't have to go out with them.
Yes.
They turned out to be big jerks.
Because they were not very appealing like
They were not very gentlemanly when they
No.
lost.
And she retorts that a gentleman always pays his debt. And Allison would just prefer to leave. But Joe holds her ground.
Allison's
and-
like, I'll give you $70
Can
if
we
we can
just
leave.
Can we just go? And Dwayne drops the money on the pool table. Joe pockets it. And as the girls turn to go, he calls them bitches.
Bitches. Can you believe that?
I cannot.
I can't believe that.
Joe retorts.
Turns around into her close up.
and you say it.
Says that may be, but these bitches just beat your pants off. I would have said something slightly different.
And
but
then
in
it
that
kind
vein.
of
But it
lunges
is television.
at you, which
It
is
is
really,
TV.
I thought that was so violent, didn't you, when he lunged at her?
It was really aggressive because
Yeah,
they try to
later.
hurry out.
We run to the
Scared
bar.
me.
He follows. Yeah, he follows you guys, and he's barely held back by his friend. He's sort of like trying to, grab at you as you guys are leaving, and you hustle out $50 richer.
Yeah, we go laughing out. I'm like, do you not realize that there's a guy trying to hurt you? I
Yeah.
think is kind of, especially when this is against the domestic violence show.
Yeah.
It's like, let's not
Right.
do the super cute and funny guy lunging after a girl. Let's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But again, here's where we see Joe's confidence. Like, I got this. I
Yeah.
knew what I was doing
Yeah,
at the pool
that's true.
table. We got all this money. And
Yeah,
come on, I
her
got you. And
confidence.
she takes her new friend out the door with their
And then
$50.
thank God they hold him in the bar because he's running after
Yeah.
us and he's held back and we're like,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Hey guys, I'm Kate Max. You might know me from my popular online series, The Running Interview Show, where I run with celebrities, athletes, entrepreneurs, and more. After those runs, the conversations keep going. That's what my podcast, Post Run High, is all about. It's a chance to sit down with my guests and dive even deeper into their stories, their journeys, and the thoughts that arise once we've hit the pavement together. You know that rush of endorphins you feel after a great workout? Well, that's when the real magic happens. So if you love hearing real, inspiring stories from the people you know, follow, and admire, join me every week for Post Run High. It's where we take the conversation beyond the run and get into the heart of it all. It's lighthearted, pretty crazy, and very fun. Listen to Post Run High on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Marie.
And I'm Sydney. And we're Mess.
Well, not a mess, but on our podcast called Mess, we celebrate all things messy.
But the gag is, not everything is a mess. Sometimes it's just living.
Yeah, things like J-Lo on her third divorce.
Living. Girls' trip to Miami.
Mess.
Ozempic.
Messy,
skinny living.
Restaurant stealing a birthday cake. Mess.
Wait, what flavor was the cake, though?
Okay, that's a good question.
Hooking up with someone in accounting and then getting a promotion.
Living. Breaking up with your girlfriend while on Instagram Live.
Living.
It's kind of mess.
Yeah. Well, you get it.
Got it?
Live, love, mess. Listen to Mess with Sydney Washington and Marie Faustin on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Jenny Garth, Jana Kramer, Amy Robach, and TJ Holmes bring you I Do Part 2, a one-of-a-kind experiment in podcasting to help you find love again. If you didn't get it right the first time, it's time to try again as they guide you through this podcast experiment in dating.
Hey, I'm Jana Kramer. As they say, those that cannot do, teach. Actually, I think I finally got it right, so take the failures I've had the second or even third or whatever, maybe the fourth time around.
I'm Jenny Garth. 29 years ago, Kelly Taylor said these words, I choose me. She made her choice. She chose herself. When it comes to love, choose you first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Robach.
And I'm TJ Holmes, and we are, well, not necessarily relationship experts. If you're ready to dive back into the dating pool and find lasting love, finally, we want to help.
Listen to I Do Part 2 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, I'm Gianna Prudenti. And I'm Jamae Jackson Gadsden. We're the hosts of Let's Talk Offline, the early career podcast from LinkedIn News and iHeart Podcasts. One of the most exciting things about having your first real job is that first real paycheck. You're probably thinking, yay, I can finally buy a new phone. But you also have a lot of questions, like, how should I be investing this money? I mean, how much do I save? And what about my 401k? Well, we're talking with finance expert Vivian Tu, aka Your Rich BFF, to break it all down.
I always get roasted on the internet when I say this out loud, but I'm like, every single year, you need to be asking for a raise of somewhere between 10 to 15%. I'm not saying you're going to get 15% every single year, but if you ask for 10 to 15 and you end up getting 8, that is actually a true raise.
Listen to this week's episode of Let's Talk Offline on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I found out I was related to the guy that I was dating.
I don't feel emotions correctly.
I am talking to a felon right now, and I cannot decide if I like him or not.
Those were some callers from my call-in podcast, Therapy Gecko. It's a show where I take real phone calls from anonymous strangers all over the world as a fake gecko therapist and try to dig into their brains and learn a little bit about their lives. I know that's a weird concept, but I promise it's pretty interesting if you give it a shot. Matter of fact, here's a few more examples of the kinds of calls we get on this show.
I live with my boyfriend, and I found his piss jar in our apartment.
I collect my roommate's toenails and fingernails. I have very overbearing parents. Even at the age of 29, they won't let me move out of their house.
So if you want an excuse to get out of your own head and see what's going on in someone else's head, search for Therapy Gecko on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's the one with the green guy on it.
So then we're back at Michael and Jane's apartment. Michael is trying to get Jane to leave for the movies, and the phone rings. Michael answers the phone, and it is Liz. And she sounds like she's crying, and she asks to talk to Jane. And then we cut to Michael and Jane driving up to Liz and Scott's house, where Liz is waiting outside the garage. Jane runs up to hug her and help Liz into the car.
And the way she's walking, you can tell how hurt she is.
She's
right.
Yep,
Just her whole
she's
body's
hurting.
been
Something bad has
beaten, yeah.
happened. And Michael turns around to the back seat to see Liz's face, totally freshly bloodied and
Oof.
bruised.
That's it.
And
He's
tears
seen.
streaming
And he's
down
like,
her
look,
face.
we still don't have all the
Yeah,
information we need.
no.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's like,
Is
I
there
am
any
swooping in.
proof? How did this happen? Yeah.
Did the pipes break
You
again?
believe her?
He is not. Finally believes her.
Yeah.
Finally. And we cut to their apartment where Michael is tending to Liz's facial wounds. Liz is sort of wryly joking that this is what Scott usually does. She says, he beats me up and then he patches me up.
Isn't it weird too that nobody says we should go straight to the police?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Like before he even, maybe it's before we've seen the pictures of people, but you go straight to the police.
Did someone say anything? Did she say in there, like, no, I don't want to?
I didn't hear it.
No,
Well,
I
and it's
didn't hear
I
it.
could
perhaps
have missed
that,
it, but I didn't
perhaps
hear
that
it.
is like that doesn't seem like something she feels confident doing, but what she does need is someplace safe. And so she's turned to Jane and Michael. And the first thing is like that she just needs
Yeah.
shelter. You know, maybe that's her first impulse. But you're right.
Yeah.
Police would
Yeah.
have been
It was,
a
it
smart
was
move
strange
at this
to me.
point.
Yeah.
She says she realizes it's absurd
But
that
wait a second. I just want to say, you know, I won't speak for you guys, but we've never been in this situation.
Yeah.
So it just dawned on me a book I read of Friday Afternoon Club, the Griffin Dunn book.
Yes, yes.
So he talks about his sister was murdered by a boyfriend and she called a friend, I think. It was just horrible. And it just is like, this is a real situation. This is a real dynamic, unfortunately. And, you know, it's easy to say, well, they should just call the police.
Right.
So I just want to acknowledge that.
No. And yeah, and I'm not saying
Because it
it's
makes
not easy,
sense
but I'm saying
to us.
I think they should have said we really should go to the police, and then she could have said I'm too scared, whatever it is. But it's just strange to me that nobody said
It's not even talked about.
why
not
aren't we
even
going to
brought
the
up.
police? Yeah, that's what's strange.
Yeah,
But I totally understand why she couldn't or wouldn't or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. So Jane tells Liz that she can stay as long as she likes, needs, and that Scott is the one with the problem here. And Liz tells Jane that she feels humiliated. Liz thinks no one understands, and she tells them, think it would be the last time, and then there would always be another reason for it to happen again. And then there would be an apology or an excuse from Scott after he abused her, and that he had to make up excuses. Then they had to make up excuses for her bruising. And Liz says she thinks it was the hospital and everything that came with it that made him stressed. And she's making excuses for him even here.
Mm-hmm.
And she acknowledges, though, that she's been rationalizing this for years.
And that fantasy, it didn't used to be that way. As if we
Yeah.
could get back to that time when it wasn't this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Liz then, and she's just so good in this scene. She's so
Yeah, she's so
emotional
good.
and raw and real. And
Mhm.
she apologizes to Michael, saying she didn't know where else to go. Jane is out of the room for a second, getting a bath ready for Liz. And Michael tells Liz that he should have done more and that Jane had told him, but he didn't want to believe that Scott could do something like this. And she says, neither did I.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then crying some more, Michael hugs her. Liz admits that she still loves Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but she's just terrific in these scenes. Then we're cutting to a lookout point at night, looking out over the city of Los Angeles. Allison and Joe.
Back to the new best friends.
Yeah, besties. Again, another party that I missed. They're looking out over the LA lights, and Joe is impressed at this spot that Allison is showing her of her new city in LA. Allison says, after what happens at Shooters tonight, I feel like Thelma and Louise. Joe says she feels a freedom to be who she wants to be, and she feels like she likes the fear instead of fearing it.
So I think she's referring, obviously, back to the life she just left. And that's what I really loved about this character now and this scene is that she's already jumped into the unknown. She's in the unknown. She didn't know that you existed. She did, but here's this view. And by the way, I don't know where we shot it. I have no recollection of.
I'm guessing Mulholland somewhere.
No, you don't think?
Because Mulholland would have been, first of all, it wasn't the valley because the lights would have stretched much further. And there was, I saw, it should have been Mulholland, but I think it was out in Santa Clarita somewhere.
Maybe up on a hill in Santa
because
Clarita.
if you're up on Mulholland, the cars are much further away and further down. And I saw a car like not that far below us. So it was supposed to be Mulholland. But it wasn't, and I don't remember shooting it. And if we were up on Mulholland, the lights would have gone off way, miles into the valley or even in the LA side.
All right. So for those of us who know, it wasn't actually Mulholland.
I don't know where it was. I just didn't know if you would have remembered, but it was so long ago and some random night we had. But anyway, I love that she says to love the fear as opposed to being afraid of the fear. Because when you think about what she left, and here she is in the middle of what she was really scared of, the unknown before, and she's in it. And I just love that line that they gave her. And it dawned on me, oh, that's what this whole episode is for this character, of, oh my God, I'm here and these nosy, annoyingly friendly people. And I have an apartment and I have a new best friend. And it's like, we played pool and it's like, here I am in the new adventure that she had no clue about. And she probably would have gone to some, charity ball and this and that and had to wear her little outfit and, in a very stifled life compared to this. And she's in it. And that was really I really am a believer in that. And if you can switch your head around to, embracing the unknown because everything's always unknown. And so I really I aligned with her in that. And I thought it was a great message.
We also saw Joe coming out of her reserved and standoffish. She's really warmed up and she's really grateful for Allison. And Joe says she owes it all to Allison. And she says, well, what did I do? Except maybe tag along. She feels like she was along for this ride at the pool place with Joe, but Joe is actually really grateful for Allison. It's just really cute. And Joe says, well, you helped me kick the hell out of that dryer, which is obviously there's so much more to
which is
what
just a cute
meant
line,
to her.
but to get it out of the system because we both been that repression. That's that repression.
There's so much more than actually
and
kicking.
I am married to a man from the East Coast and worked in New York and he's from Connecticut. And there is this, I must say, and it's not just him, there is this sort of status quo, and everyone comes to California because you can reinvent yourself. You can be whoever the F you want to be. And no one's going to go, well, what family name are you from? Well, where do you, it's just not like that. You can be really cool and quirky and broke on Venice Beach. Well, not anymore. You can't live there on Venice Beach. But I mean, so she's that. She's leaving that status quo, that kind of staid, historic life.
And she's actually even vulnerable in this scene. She asks Allison if she's alienated everyone in the building. Oh, does everyone hate me? And she tells Allison she was scared to move out here and she feels like she's bad at making friends. And then she goes on to show Allison the medications that her therapist has prescribed for her. That is the therapist that her husband had provided for her in New York. And then Joe, in this scene, she comes to a decision. She tells Allison.
So they're antidepressants.
Antidepressants, She tells Allison that she doesn't think she's going to need these pills anymore. And then getting up, Joe hurls the medications over the edge, off into the darkness. And she says,
no more safety net.
Yeah, antidepressants because I think that was before antidepressants were really a thing. Maybe Valium, something to keep you quiet and calm and docile. That was my take on it, that it was something. Remember Mama's Little Helper in the 50s when they took the Valium? That was my guess.
Maybe, but this is 92.
In any case, Joe doesn't feel like she needs it anymore here in LA.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Was there even Prozac in 92? Like that was the first one I remember even hearing about.
This one I can't answer at all.
We don't know. We just stay depressed. We have no help.
Jenny Garth, Jana Kramer, Amy Robach, and TJ Holmes bring you I Do Part 2, a one-of-a-kind experiment in podcasting to help you find love again. If you didn't get it right the first time, it's time to try again as they guide you through this podcast experiment in dating.
Hey, I'm Jana Kramer. As they say, those that cannot do, teach. Actually, I think I finally got it right, so take the failures I've had the second or even third or whatever, maybe the fourth time around.
I'm Jenny Garth. 29 years ago, Kelly Taylor said these words, I choose me. She made her choice. She chose herself. When it comes to love, choose you first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Robach.
And I'm TJ Holmes, and we are, well, not necessarily relationship experts. If you're ready to dive back into the dating pool and find lasting love, finally, we want to help.
Listen to I Do Part 2 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, I'm Marie.
And I'm Sydney. And we're mess.
Well, not a mess, but on our podcast called Mess, we celebrate all things messy.
But the gag is, not everything is a mess. Sometimes it's just living.
Yeah, things like J-Lo on her third divorce.
Living. Girls' trip to Miami.
Mess.
Ozempic.
Messy,
skinny living.
Restaurant stealing a birthday cake. Mess.
Wait, what flavor was the cake, though?
Okay, that's a good question.
Hooking up with someone in accounting and then getting a promotion.
Living. Breaking up with your girlfriend while on Instagram Live.
Living.
It's kind of mess.
Yeah. Well, you get it.
Got it?
Live, love, mess. Listen to Mess with Sydney Washington and Marie Faustin on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey guys, I'm Kate Max. You might know me from my popular online series, The Running Interview Show, where I run with celebrities, athletes, entrepreneurs, and more. After those runs, the conversations keep going. That's what my podcast, Post Run High, is all about. It's a chance to sit down with my guests and dive even deeper into their stories, their journeys, and the thoughts that arise once we've hit the pavement together. You know that rush of endorphins you feel after a great workout? Well, that's when the real magic happens. So if you love hearing real, inspiring stories from the people you know, follow, and admire, join me every week for Post Run High. It's where we take the conversation beyond the run and get into the heart of it all. It's lighthearted, pretty crazy, and very fun. Listen to Post Run High on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Gianna Prudenti. And I'm Jamae Jackson Gadsden. We're the hosts of Let's Talk Offline, the early career podcast from LinkedIn News and iHeart Podcasts. One of the most exciting things about having your first real job is that first real paycheck. You're probably thinking, yay, I can finally buy a new phone. But you also have a lot of questions, like, how should I be investing this money? I mean, how much do I save? And what about my 401k? Well, we're talking with finance expert Vivian Tu, aka Your Rich BFF, to break it all down.
I always get roasted on the internet when I say this out loud, but I'm like, every single year you need to be asking for a raise of somewhere between 10 to 15%. I'm not saying you're going to get 15% every single year, but if you ask for 10 to 15 and you end up getting 8, that is actually a true raise.
Listen to this week's episode of Let's Talk Offline on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I found out I was related to the guy that I was dating.
I don't feel emotions correctly.
I am talking to a felon right now, and I cannot decide if I like him or not.
Those were some callers from my call-in podcast, Therapy Gecko. It's a show where I take real phone calls from anonymous strangers all over the world as a fake gecko therapist and try to dig into their brains and learn a little bit about their lives. I know that's a weird concept, but I promise it's pretty interesting if you give it a shot. Matter of fact, here's a few more examples of the kinds of calls we get on this show.
I live with my boyfriend, and I found his piss jar in our apartment.
I collect my roommate's toenails and fingernails. I have very overbearing parents. Even at the age of 29, they won't let me move out of their house.
So if you want an excuse to get out of your own head and see what's going on in someone else's head, search for Therapy Gecko on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's the one with the green guy on it.
Cut to Allison and Billy's apartment. Billy is waiting up for Allison. Here's where he's reading a magazine.
Oh my God.
First of all,
Accurately.
what is he doing?
Well, he's smelling the magazine, the perfume
sample.
I don't know if that was Andrew or the director, Nancy Malone, or what, but
Sounds
that
like
was
a Nancy
genius.
Malone thing, doesn't it?
It's just like,
don't just read the magazine.
Do something with it.
Smell
That
it.
was probably
and
Nancy.
the door opens and he sort of quickly puts that down. And Allison comes home for the night after her night with Joe. How did it go? Billy wonders. And Allison says, Joe's great. Billy says he still thinks Joe's weird because she didn't answer the phone when he was in there. But
she called me Bill.
Bill, she called
Allison,
me Bill.
and she called me Bill. Who calls me Bill?
Did you notice in this episode I call you Al?
Yeah.
Was that up on that scene that we just talked about?
Give everybody a nickname,
just
apparently.
like,
You're going to
"Hey,
call
Al."
Jake Ja.
Oh, cute. Yeah.
I think it's hilarious. I never call. I think they just drop it. I never say it again. I bet. I had forgotten.
I like the Bill one.
Bill.
And Allison says to Billy, "You're still my best friend." And then she asks Billy, "Are you reading my magazines?" Billy admits,
"Are you smelling
my magazines? Did I catch a glimpse of you sniffing that perfume?" Billy admits he took a quiz in one of the magazines, actually. And he tells Allison that based on the results, he's an almost perfect guy.
To which the audience goes, no duh, Allison, wake up.
Could have told you that. Yeah. Could have told you that. The banter is very cute. They shut off the lights as they each head to their respective bedrooms.
Oh my God. I remember those quizzes, don't you? Do you have the right man? Are you the right girlfriend? Is it the right thing? Is that this, everything?
Well, Billy wanted to know. So,
he took the quiz.
Yeah. So now at the hospital, Michael is in the staff room when Dr. Scott walks in, and Scott says he saw Michael with Williams, some other physician, and Michael says he didn't say anything. Michael tells Scott he doesn't plan to tell Levin everything he knows. He said he saw what Scott did to Liz's face, and Scott needs therapy, he tells him. Scott says, dude, it won't happen again. Michael says, that's what Liz said he would say, but Michael says, I have seen your work. And Scott then slams Michael up against the lockers. Michael saying, yeah, hit me, dude. Hit me.
Better
than hitting Liz.
Yeah.
Better me than Liz.
Such a good scene.
I love that
this
line.
scene.
I thought that was such a great, I thought Michael finally
confronted him.
Up. Yeah, that was a great line.
Mm-hmm.
And so as much as he challenges him to hit him, Scott doesn't, instead sort of backing away and hitting the lockers instead off to the side and says, he's finished. He doesn't want to lose Liz. And he asks Michael, where is she? Where is Liz? Michael says Liz left this morning and she made Jane and Michael promise not to tell him where she's going.
Would have been slightly better if he said, I don't know.
Yep. And there's no excuse for Scott's behavior, he says, and you need to go tell Levin. Scott asks Michael to come with him to tell Levin, and Michael and Scott walk together down the hall to go talk to
Which is, now look, as much as I want him punished, my little boundary alarm is going off, and I'm like, it's not really that he needs to go tell his boss. This is his work. It's up to her to call the police or not. It's a marriage issue. It's not a work issue. So I thought this was strange. Did you think this was a weird boundary thing?
Well, it's his biggest fear that it's going to, his career will be affected on something he's responsible for, right? So he's like, well, I just need to cover my job and deal with that.
I totally understand. But
You're thinking that Michael is crossing a boundary by telling their boss.
I don't know why it's Michael's business to tell their boss that he's abusive to his wife. I think it's for the police, and I think it's for her to tell the police. I know this sounds weird, but it's almost like gossip at this point. It's like, look what he did. Look what he did. It's like, well, yeah, but
I don't
did
think
it
that's the right
harm the
word.
patients?
Gossip.
No.
Well, I know it's not.
Do you
but
think
I'm saying
he's doing it because if he says he just slammed him, he's a violent man. Not just that he beats his wife, which isn't just about behind at the house and just between you and your wife, but he just slammed him up. He hit the other locker. what is he going to tell him exactly? He says, I'm about to go tell
Well, that's what's
Levin.
interesting. Like, what is he
Like,
going to go? That's what I'm saying.
right.
I just say, look, obviously he needs to have consequences. I don't think the appropriate place to have consequences. It's not like he's a professional athlete and there was a video of him and he's up there. Well, I guess he is pretending to be something he's not.
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. It's interesting that you're bringing this up.
It seems
For
like he should be
me-
the police, not his boss.
Right.
To
But
me.
he's like, here's what he said is the next thing I'm going to be doing. This is going to be difficult for me. Michael, will you come handhold me through this? It's almost like this, accountability
But if I
thing.
did something, say I hit Daphne
Mm-hmm.
because maybe she called me Al again. Maybe she called me Al again and I hit her. Like I wouldn't go to our boss. I don't know. It's just,
Yeah.
I know it's not really important. I just saw that. I thought that those don't feel like the proper authorities to go to in this situation.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it was
Interesting.
to me.
So, but it's theatrical and that's where they were.
That's
That's
true.
the
That's
set
a
where they
good
were.
point, yeah.
So then we cut to Jake and he is in the shower in his apartment and the water suddenly
Aw.
changes temperature and he rips open the shower curtain in anger, turns off the water and grabs a towel, looking
And
upstairs.
most importantly, we
And
get
even-
to see him with no shoes.
Yes,
Most
even Grant
importantly.
can't argue with this.
Wrap
They're
a
like,
damn
you can't
towel.
argue with this shirtless
Yep.
scene.
Yep. He storms through the courtyard in his towel. Thank you very
So
much.
cute.
And he heads
Imagine.
upstairs to Joe's apartment.
Banging on my door there.
By the way, we see every second of the walk. They're not
Yeah.
going to cut any of
Yeah.
this
Yep.
out.
And you know what I'm thinking? That courtyard is so dirty. Like, isn't he wearing
His feet
like,
are getting
sliders
filthy.
or something on his feet? Are like, okay.
And Joe answers the door in a silky blue robe. And she clocks him very clearly,
Mhm.
barely dressed.
Oh,
And Jake
uh-huh.
says, the water. I was taking a shower. Joe tells Jake that she was brushing her teeth. And then she remembers about the water, what he had said, saying,
You're hot, I'm cold. When I'm hot, you're cold or something.
when you're hot, I'm cold. How unfortunate.
Unfortunate.
She's-
As she like goes up and down with her eyes.
and a little smile. And that is
But
enough.
also, so you turned on cold water to brush your teeth and that did something to his hot water? I guess we just don't pull the thread, right? Just don't pull the
just
thread.
don't pull the
We
thread.
got him without a
Something.
shirt
Yeah.
and you in a robe
Yeah.
and we're
That's
good.
right.
Yep.
That's what we did.
How unfortunate. She says a little smile, and that's enough to get Jake unmad. Because he's like a little bit flummoxed there.
Yes.
And with one more cute flirty beat of them looking at each other, Jake tells Joe to have a nice day and walks back to his apartment. Joe watches him go. Thank you very much. And Jake walks by.
In her beautiful periwinkle.
Very
silk robe.
gorgeous silk robe. Jake walks by Billy, who's reading the paper in the courtyard. And Billy says to Jake without even looking up, so what do you think? And Jake responds, definite possibilities.
Mhm.
Yes.
And with that, we end the episode with beautiful Joe leaning over the railing above, still checking out Jake, from upstairs.
Yeah. Wow.
Not
Is that
even
what happens when I turn
pretending.
on the hot water?
Yeah.
Not even pretending you're not looking.
Yeah.
No, we
That's
know.
gonna happen. I'm enjoying the fear. I
Well,
like
this
this
is-
adventure
I like-
so far. I should have done this sooner.
I love LA.
Yeah, I love LA.
All right. Well, that was a fun episode.
That was great.
Maybe one of my favorites so far.
It's really picking up. It's really getting better. And we talked about before, this is what they don't give shows now, the chance to really find their legs.
Yeah.
Because they're really starting to figure it out and they gave us enough
Yeah.
time. And one thing too that we didn't touch on, one of the reasons our ratings were so low is that we were on Fox and Fox had far fewer markets in which they were shown. So
Yeah.
our numbers, I don't know if we ever actually broke the top 10. We did there was some like 18 to 35, whatever, we broke
Yeah.
the top 10, but because we just didn't have as many markets.
Yeah, because I remember going to like something in some plane with just some private plane, and like we had to come out on stage, and it was me and someone from Married with Children and Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah.
And we're all trying to say, we're a new network. Hi.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Football was a big deal.
You know who
Yeah.
would remember this? Andrew. So when we have Andrew back on, I'm going to ask him because he clocked all of that. He was paying careful attention to all of that. So we should ask him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we had a fan send in some ratings information too.
Yes.
Just from Wikipedia. So
I
take that
didn't
with a grain of salt.
understand
But
that though. I couldn't.
yeah,
Did
it's
you
a
understand
the
it?
numbers are a little bit hard to translate
If that
into
fan is
like.
listening, please explain it to us. Because we're
Anyway, not very well
thank you
explained.
for listening and trying to help us. We need apparently a little more help to figure it out.
But I also thought, Sign of the Times, we had some pagers appear in this episode, like beepers. Remember we called them beepers instead of pagers when the doctor's pagers go off.
I feel like doctors still use those.
Yeah, they
I
should.
don't know.
I'm not sure. Do they call them beepers?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel like
we call
doctors
them
still use
beepers.
pagers.
All right. Well, I am looking forward to the next episode because guess what? I know that Daphne will be in it and Courtney will be in it, and I'll get to see my friends and I'll have some more FOMO. But I'm really looking forward to the next. So our next will be a recap. That'll be episode 16 coming up here on Still the Place.
Yes.
And this one was really fun, guys.
So, and then you come on 1920. And then you go away for a little bit and then you come back?
Yep.
Because these were long seasons.
For how long do you go away? Do you remember?
For the rest of the season. So I'm just going to pop in and pop out.
Oh,
Yeah.
You're going to be super happy for 2 weeks and come back.
I'm going to be super weirded out. Like, oh my God, I'm in the show. What am I going to do? Like, I don't even know.
So you come in 1920 and then Heather comes in 21.
Mm-hmm. We're so grateful that everyone's listening and watching along with us.
Yes.
So thanks for coming to Still the Place.
Please
and
tell everyone to listen and leave reviews and download.
And we'll be here next week.
Leave a 12-star review.
Leave a 12-star review. Rave review.
You have to write in extra stars, but it's worth it.
We appreciate all the stars.
And again, you can watch these shows with us on Paramount Plus.
All right. We'll see you next week.
I'm
Still the
love
Place.
you guys. Yay.
Hey guys, I'm Kate Max. You might know me from my popular online series, The Running Interview Show, where I run with celebrities, athletes, entrepreneurs, and more. After those runs, the conversations keep going. That's what my podcast, Post Run High, is all about. It's a chance to sit down with my guests and dive even deeper into their stories, their journeys, and the thoughts that arise once we've hit the pavement together. Listen to Post Run High on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Marie.
And I'm Sydney. And we're Mess.
Well, not a mess, but on our podcast called Mess, we celebrate all things messy.
But the gag is, not everything is a mess. Sometimes it's just living.
Yeah, things like J-Lo on her third divorce.
Living. Girls' trip to Miami. Mess.
Breaking up with your girlfriend while on Instagram Live.
Living.
It's kind of mess.
Yeah. Well, you get it.
Got it?
Live, love, mess. Listen to Mess with Sydney Washington and Marie Faustin on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I found out I was related to the guy that I was dating.
I don't feel emotions correctly. I collect my roommate's toenails and fingernails.
Those were some callers from my call-in podcast, Therapy Gecko. It's a show where I take phone calls from anonymous strangers as a fake gecko therapist and try to learn a little bit about their lives. I know that's a weird concept, but I promise it's very interesting. Check it out for yourself by searching for Therapy Gecko on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, I'm Madison Packer, a pro hockey veteran going on my 10th season in New York.
And I'm Anya Packer, a former pro hockey player and now a full Madison Packer stan.
Anya and I met through hockey, and now we're married and moms to 2 awesome toddlers, ages 2 and 4.
And we're excited about our new podcast, Moms Who Puck, which talks about everything from pro hockey to professional women's athletes to raising children and all the messiness in between.
So listen to Moms Who Puck on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The 2025 iHeart Podcast Awards are coming. This is the chance to nominate your podcast for the industry's biggest award. Submit your podcast for nomination now at iHeart.com/podcast awards. But hurry, submissions close on December 8th. Hey, you've been doing all that talking. It's time to get rewarded for it. Submit your podcast today at iHeart.com/podcast awards. That's iHeart.com/podcast awards.